Hello everyone! If you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you have been here before, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how to use the terraforming tools. So let's get started. There's a few different tools for terraforming. So there's the flatten the ground, there is create a flattened slope, raise or lower the ground, flatten at a specific height, create a ramp, or create a hill. So we're gonna do a little bit of testing and use all of these and see what happens. And I only have 13 people and only 10 of them are adults. So it's gonna take a while for them to do the terraforming. So I'm planning to edit out the middle chunks so that you don't have to sit here and watch me wait for them to terraform. Let's first talk about the flatten the ground tool. So it flattens a specific area, and so you just go over the area that you want to do and release the thing and pull up. But what it does is it actually finds the average height, and that is the height that it does. So because most of the ground is closer to this height, so it's going to pull this corner down and then pull the edges over here up. I'm going to unpause it and let them terraform really quick, and we'll see what it turns out to look like. So they just finished this. So this is what the flatten the ground looks like. This whole area here is all one height, this whole chunk, but it did the average of the whole thing. So this side went up a little bit, this side went up a little bit, and then this whole chunk went down, which is nice. It is a nice thing to have that ability. So this is good for quite a few things. They can still walk up and down this, so you can put buildings here. It will be flat for them, and then they can get up this little edge, and that's nice. It does cause issues though sometimes if you use that, like let's say I wanted to build on the side of this mountain and I did it. It would actually take out a chunk, but it might make it so they can't get up there once it's done being built, because let's do it on this part. We'll take this part and flatten it. Okay, so this one also has a spot they can get up here. They wouldn't be able to walk up this lip here, but they can walk across here, and they can walk across here. So it might not be an issue. You just have to be careful with it, because sometimes if you do it in the wrong spot, it'll make it so there's no spot for them to get to that piece of land. So that's how you use the flatten the ground. The flatten the slope tool is actually what I did here for these farms. So it pretty much works the same way as the flatten the ground tool, but instead you're flattening a slope. So you're doing almost like a giant ramp that you can build some stuff on. The thing with the slopes is, depending on how steep of a slope it is, because it will do some pretty, like this is pretty steep, and that you wouldn't be able to build a building on when it's that steep. You could probably still build farms, but you wouldn't be able to build any of those buildings. So doing the create a flattened slope thing has some good uses. And if we are actually in the mountainous map, but if you had a flatter thing, creating a slope might be a little bit more useful. When the heights are so different from the top to the bottom, it's going to be a very steep slope, but if they were closer together, it wouldn't be quite so steep. And then my favorite tool is this raise or lower the ground tool. So actually I'm going to save that one for last. Let's talk about the flatten at the height. So let's say that I want this whole area to be this height, the same as these houses. So you click on whatever height that's at. So I want it to be this height. And then you go over here and you choose which area you want to make that same height. So that's really nice if you want it to be exactly the same. The problem with it is that it has this circle, so you can't make it like an exact square. It's going to be a little bit off, if you can tell where the edges are of this spot that I'm making. So it's not an exact science. It kind of makes a weird shape, but it's all going to be exactly the same height, which is nice. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to let them terraform that, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. So as you can see, it made it all one height, which is really nice. The cool thing about that tool is that you can click a spot here and then go all the way over here and make this the same exact height as this spot if you want. I don't know why you would need to do that, but you can do that without having to do the whole thing, but otherwise it makes a weird shape here. So it would be really hard for me to fit, you know, a house against here. I mean, it would fit, but it just wouldn't touch the edges and stuff. So it's just something to think about. I mean, it's a good tool. It's just different. Then we have the ramp, which I've already used a couple of times here. You can't do it any skinnier than 4. And that's because the edge on each side is actually just where the slope, as you can see here, it creates this middle ground between the other land and the ramp that you're making. So it's really just a 2 wide ramp if you do the 4 by whatever. But this is really nice because it makes a nice exact slope that is just that wide, and it goes from one height to another so they can walk up it, but it's not changing the whole layout, which is pretty cool. And then there's this create a hill, which I have not actually ever used. I can show you kind of what it looks like, but to me it doesn't really make sense. I feel like in this game terraforming is mostly used to create flat land so that you can build things, or to create ramps or things like that so that you can walk up and down and not have issues. So creating a hill doesn't really make sense to me, but it's there. And then my favorite, which is the raise and lower the ground. So the reason that I like this one the best is because you choose a square or a rectangle or whatever, and just like everything else, the outer edge, like the one square on the very outside all the way around, is going to not change a whole lot. It's going to stay pretty close to the same because that's kind of that in between the normal land and where you're terraforming. But when you do this, you can create a flat piece of land at any height that you want. And the reason that I like this one specifically is because you can make sure that at least one edge is a height that will allow people to get up there. So on the very top edge here, it is flat and even with the ground that the houses are on and with the left side. But the right side and the what would be to the south is going to have a different height. So that's pretty cool. You can change it to whatever you want, but usually I just use it to make sure that at least one side is the same height so that they can get up onto it. And the reason I like this is because there's no guesswork. You know the whole thing's going to be square, and you know that they can get onto one side. Whereas the flatten the ground is pretty similar, but sometimes there's just that issue with it where, like here you wouldn't be able to get up at all at any of these edges. Maybe right here you could get on it, but that's it. The rest of this land, edge of this is not able to get up. So this spot right here would be the only place they would be able to get onto this flattened ground. So that's just something to think about. It's a lot easier to make a decision here and say, okay, I want this bottom, 4 blocks to be able, I mean, it's still not a whole lot of space, but at least you can decide which area you want them to be able to get on instead of taking the middle ground. I can do it up here and they can get up. They can get on it from the top corner, or I can do it down here and they can get it from the bottom corner. Or I can do it in closer to the middle and they can come into the side there. I just really like that a lot more. And so I am going to use it really quick right here just to show you. I'm going to do just this chunk right here first. We're going to make it even with the left side and the front, and we will see how that turns out. And I'm going to unpause it. So that's the new one that I just made. So it's even with this. I can put, a house here anywhere. I can do it against the wall here. So if I make sure that the door is in the front, I can put it all the way against the edge here instead of having like a weird spot behind it like this. But I mean, this isn't the end of the world. It's just I personally, I'm a little bit OCD about this sort of stuff. So having that little piece of land in the back that just doesn't quite fit would drive me nuts. So it's just nice to have it flat and to be able to choose the height that you want it. And that's going to be it for this episode of Tips on How to Play Life is Feudal Forest Village. If you liked the episode, please click the like button. If you want to see more videos like this one, please subscribe. And if you haven't already, leave me a comment on what you thought. I'll see you next time.